everybody, it's Emily at Arg Schooling, and today I want to talk about my favorite reads from February. I decided that rather than try to do an entire wrap-up, I read 13 books in the month of February, and I just don't know that I have it in me to talk about all 13 of them. So I decided instead to focus on the ones that I loved the most, and maybe hopefully have the most things to say. I have 8 books that I want to talk about, so let's just get right into it. First up, I want to talk about Betty Before X. This is by Ilyasa Shabazz and Renee Watson. This is actually the first book I read in February, and I just really enjoyed it. I wanted to read it so that I could review it for History Book by Book, and I think I got like 3 chapters in and I stopped and got out my notebook and started taking notes because I decided this is like the perfect book for a lit bite, so stay tuned for that. I just thought this was excellent. I love reading middle grade memoirs. This is technically not a memoir, it's more of a biography, but it had the same feelings that I get from middle grade memoirs. It's a really great story about the childhood of Betty Shabazz. I loved getting to see like how she became so active with activism, how she developed this like desire to do something. I thought the inspiration for that and the people she was surrounded by who led her to that life, I just found that fascinating. I like getting the behind the scenes of how somebody like grows and develops into something. So I just thought this was really well done. The writing was excellent, and I think it's a really great read. Highly recommend. I gave this 5 stars. The next book I want to talk about, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be a mess because I don't have a copy of it. I read it as an ARC, and I'm probably not gonna get anything like the details correct, but I really enjoyed it, so I definitely wanted to mention it, and that is The Grace of Wild Things by Heather Fawcett. One of my hobbies is scouring NetGalley and looking for new things that I might want to check out. And when I saw Heather Fawcett had a new book out, she wrote another middle grade that I really enjoyed, Ember and the Ice Dragons. I think it was in one of, I don't know if it was in a family reading crate or in a read aloud book club. I think it was read aloud book club. Anyway, I really enjoyed that. So when I saw she had a new book coming out, and not only a new book coming out, but also Anne of Green Gables inspired story, I was intrigued. So I wanted to read it and see if I liked it. Oh, it was so good. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. Anne of Green Gables is one of my favorite things, and so whenever I see somebody doing a retelling or a reimagining or something, I get a little nervous, but I still want to read it. And like see if it's what I want it to be, and this definitely was. This is a book about a girl who is a witch. She is born with this magic ability, but she's an orphan and nobody wants her because they don't like the fact that she can do magic. And so she decides that she can't stay at the orphanage forever and keep getting disappointed. So she goes off on her own and goes to the town witch and says, I'm gonna apprentice with you. And so the witch is the Marilla character who is like, ugh, I didn't really want you here, but I guess we can try to make this work. And you know, she's got that like grumpiness to her, but she also starts to like care for Grace. And I loved the writing. The writing was very much inspired by the way Anne talks, and it was just wonderful. And it was such a sweet, like happy story and very cozy vibes. Loved it very much. Gave it 5 stars. The next book I want to talk about is XOXO, and this is by XOXO. This is the book I picked up because of Sarah. This is her book, and she really wanted me to read it, and so I thought it would be a good book for February because it's a romance. This is a story about a Korean American girl who goes to live in Korea for a while and goes to a performing arts high school and falls in love with a K-pop idol. So that's the gist of the story. What I liked about this was all of the stuff about living in South Korea and getting to know more about K-pop and how that system works. Like a lot of the kids at this school are training to become K-pop idols, and hoping to get recruited into a group. I just think that's really interesting the way that works. It's not something I knew much about before I picked up this book, so I'm glad that I read it for that. The romance was cute, but not really what I was reading the book for, so I don't really have much to say about that. But what I really liked was like her living in Korea, going to this school. Really enjoy that kind of a story with a person from a culture who hasn't lived in that country before, like experiencing it. And I really enjoy that. That's one of my favorite things in books. So I gave this 4 stars. The next book I want to talk about is The First Signs: Unlocking the Mysteries of the World's Oldest Symbols by Genevieve von Petzinger. This is a book I read for the Build Your Library Level 9 update, and I was fascinated by this book. This also has an audiobook, which I listened to while I read. Highly recommend the audio. It was very well done. And it's also free on Audible if you have a subscription, so you don't have to use a credit. I really enjoyed this because this is something that I've always kind of wondered about, like everybody wonders about, like what is cave art? What are they trying to depict? Like the author is talking a lot about like what the art says about the culture of the prehistoric people and what we can learn about them from their art, but also like that there are certain symbols and signs that are frequently used in various cave art paintings, and like what do those signs mean? Is this a sort of proto-writing? And like if somebody uses a sign in several different pieces within a region, maybe that they were communicating through this. And the whole book was fascinating. Lots of information about like the culture of prehistoric people, like what their lives may have been like and that sort of thing, what we can learn about them anthropologically, but also just the stuff about the cave art. So fascinating. Really loved this. 5 stars. Another book I read for level 9 that I just have to talk about is Legendborn. This is by Tracy Dion, and I was super late to the game on this one. I think this has been out for 2 years now, something like that. And I pre-ordered it when it came out, and it's just been sitting on my shelf. So I kind of picked this for level 9, one, because I thought it would make an interesting fit, but also because I really wanted to read it, and this would force me to pick it up. And I'm so glad that I did. I loved this. This is an Arthurian legend retelling with a twist. This is about a main character who is African American, and she's infiltrating a very like white society and trying to find her place in that society, in this order, and where they don't really want her there. And I find it really interesting, the magic system and like how it's used in different like groups of people, like the way the order uses it versus the way her people use it. And I just found this riveting. I loved it. I immediately bought myself the sequel because I need to know what happens next. Like, this story is full of twists and turns, but like it leaves you on such a cliffhanger that I needed to know what's going to happen. So I had to buy the sequel, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to pick it up, but I'm hoping soon so that I can like find out what happens. Loved this, gave it 5 stars. The next book I wanted to mention is The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. This is by Kim Michelle Richardson. And this is the only book I got to this month from my Books About Books TBR. I had so much going on. I kind of knew that wasn't going to be successful, like that I wouldn't be able to get to much from that TBR, but I hoped that I could squeeze something in. And so I'm glad that I did pick this up. This is a story set in the 1930s in Appalachia in Kentucky, and it's about the Blue people. And I never heard of this before. This was new information for me, and I immediately had to go do some research and find out like what does that look like? Like blue? Smurf blue? Like what? I needed to know more. So this story is also about this library program that they had where these women on horseback would travel across rough terrain to bring books to people who could not get to a library. And they brought literacy. They would bring books to the children in schools, to different families living out in the wilderness and stuff. So like that was really cool too. So this story was just really interesting, really well written. I never was bored. I loved the characters in the story. Very sad. I did not expect that. Like, for some reason, I thought this was going to be kind of a fluffy book. It got dark and very sad towards the end, which I was not prepared for, and it definitely caught me off guard. But I really enjoyed the story and learning more about these people and the condition that they had that made their skin turn blue, and the way they were treated by others in their society, and it was just really interesting. I gave this 4 stars. The next book I want to mention is For Lamb, and this is by Lisa Klein Ransom. I loved this. Not gonna lie, I like reading books that are sad and disturbing and upsetting. Those are the things that I look for in a book for myself, because I like books that hurt me, apparently. And this book definitely hurt me. It was very sad. And I knew going in that this was going to be a heavy book. I did not know how heavy it was going to be until I finished it and found myself just weeping. This is a story that the author wrote about the unknown women who were lynched. Like, there were so many women who were lynched in the South during Jim Crow era, and their stories often go untold. And she found a woman named Lamb who was lynched and wanted to write a story for her. So this is a story about a girl named Lamb and growing up with her mother and her brother in Mississippi. And she is very smart. Her brother's really smart. He's determined to get out and go live up north, where he feels his life will be much improved. He will have a better opportunities if he can just go north. His mother does not want to go north. She's lived her whole life in Mississippi and thinks that, you know, she wants her children to stay with her forever, and is trying her best to raise them to live safely, you know, just to keep your head down, don't make a fuss, do what you're told, everything will be fine. And so that's like how she's trying to raise them, but both her children want more. And Lamb, inadvertently, against her will, sort of befriends this lonely white girl who is determined to be friends with Lamb. And she knows this is a bad idea. And she keeps like trying to stop being friends with her, because she knows the danger she's putting herself in by being involved with this girl. But Marnie, the little white girl, is determined that, you know, why can't you be friends with me? Like, I could be friends with you if you want me to, and nothing bad will happen. And so that sets off the consequences of what happens, you know, after that. I don't want to talk too much about it. I don't want to give away any plot points or anything like that. But this book is dark. There are trigger warnings for sexual assault. There is lynching in this book. Use of the N-word, things like that. So be aware going in. I would say this is YA, but I would say this is YA for older teens, not younger teens. I wouldn't give this book to like a 14-year-old. I just think it's too heavy, and I would rather wait until they're a little older. I would say 15 and up. 16 would probably be better. But it's beautifully written, definitely important subject matter to read about, but it is challenging, so still gave it 5 stars. Loved it. The last book I want to talk about is Immortality, a love story by Dana Schwartz. This was another one I read as an ARC. It actually comes out today, the day I'm filming this, which is the 28th of February, but it's not here yet, so I'll just have to put up a picture. But this is the sequel to Anatomy, a love story that I talked about previously in my top 10 favorites of 2022. I was so excited to read this. I loved Anatomy and wanted that same thing. And while I enjoyed it, I don't think it was as good as Anatomy, a love story. So if you've read Anatomy, a love story, and you loved that, and the gothic vibes, and all of the, like, the grave robbing and cutting up of corpses, and all, if that was the thing you loved, you might not like Immortality, a love story, as much. There is some element of that stuff in the story, but this was definitely more of a romance than I expected. Granted, it is called a love story, like it's in the title, but the first book, I felt like the love story element had more to do with Hazel's love for science and her love for becoming a surgeon, and that was her love story. Yes, there was also the whole thing with Jack, but I feel like that was second to her love for science. In Immortality, I feel like the love with Jack and that kind of thing is definitely more in the forefront. Like, that's the story. So for me, I gave it 4 stars because I didn't feel like it was as good. I still really enjoyed it though. Like, I loved the storyline where she's at court. I loved the whole thing with Princess Charlotte, and all of that was great. I really enjoyed like just watching her blossom and like come into her own as a doctor. I thought all of that was great, but for me it just wasn't quite as good, so I gave it 4 stars. So that is it. That's all for this video. I cannot wait to see what I'm gonna get through in March. I've been having such great reading months these last 2 months. I just feel like I'm on a really good roll. I've had so many 5-star reads already this year. Like, it's gonna be tough figuring out my top 10 of the year already. I'm like, I don't even know where this is gonna go. So I can't wait to find out. So thanks so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments, what is your favorite book that you read in February? I think if I have to pick a favorite, it's going to probably, ooh, this is tough. You know what? I'm gonna give it to For Lamb because it's been a while since a book made me cry like that. So I think this might be my favorite book from February, but it is a close tie between this and Legendborn. I felt both of these were just so good. Excellent books. So many important things to say. Such different vibes, but both excellent. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.